Good morning, everyone. My name is Carrow Brown, and I have come at you with a video for Wordstock Chapter 5, where we focus on story structure. For those of you who are new to my channel and you are curious about what my credentials about talking about this topic is, I have one works out published with Other Worlds Inc., and then I also have a short story that's coming out with a different press, Violet Gaze, for their One Bed anthology that's coming out in September. And I've also released a number of short stories, both under Carrow Brown and under a different pen name. And in the past, I have also done a lot of research when it comes to story structure and everything that is involved. So I'm kind of coming at it from a background point of view and also willing to share what my learning experience was. But without further ado, let's move on to the next slide. Before we actually talk about story structure, I do want to talk about Wordstock because I know that there are a lot of new subscribers on my channel who may not know what Wordstock is. And Wordstock is an incentive that is facilitated by Robert Jones, and he goes by the name of StoryDtechtive here on YouTube, and I'll have a link to his channel down below. And what Robert's kind of goal with Wordstock is to bring writers from different walks of life with different experience levels to kind of focus analyze on a topic, and he does it in a really nice way. What he does is says that we're going to talk about this and you approach it in what way that works best for you. So you're using dialogue as chapter 4, which is the last one that we did. You had a lot of individuals that were talking about what good dialogue was and kind of how to write it and different ways to craft it, where you had individuals like me who were talking about the mechanics of writing. So there's a little bit of everything to be involved. I would really encourage you to go check out those prior playlists on his channel. Now on the screen you're going to see all the participants that I know about for chapter 5. It is a lot of folks that are participating, and I am more than likely missing somebody, and if I don't have your name on here, really deepest apologies. A lot of these individuals have been writing for a long time. Some of them are published and some of them are still working. Some are traditionally, some are indie. Everybody here is got something to contribute, and I would just really highly recommend that you go check out that playlist once Robert has it up. But enough about me talking about Wordstock. Let's continue. So, story structure, what is it? Great question. If you go and Google it and you go to the image thing, you're going to find a whole bunch of different charts and graphs made by different individuals. And my honest opinion is every year it feels like somebody's trying to come out and reinvent like the story structure wheel. And with good reason, because as you progress in your experience as a writer, you are going to find what works for you and what doesn't work, and you're going to want to share that knowledge with other individuals. So sometimes it's going to look like something that you see up on the screen, and sometimes it's not. But I can break down what story structure is in one sentence. It is beats that people expect from your story. So story structure and story beats became a really big thing when Blake Snyder wrote Save the Cat. And that was really kind of talking about like all the points that you need to hit within your story. And some people swear by this book, some people don't like the book, they feel like it's really confining and they don't feel like they should follow these rules, you rebel you. But to be really honest, like this actually happened before Blake Snyder. This actually happened with Joseph Campbell. And Joseph Campbell wrote A Hero with 1,000 Faces. And what Joseph did was he created what you see here, which is the hero's journey. And he went and basically read every story that he could get his hands on, from folk tales to modern stories, and he was able to break down everything that made stories what they were. Really mechanical, and even unconsciously we were actually writing in the way that you're seeing here. Now I don't want to actually spend a lot of time talking about the hero's journey, and the reason I don't want to do that is because I could chuck a rock at an Authortube and they probably talked about the hero's journey. So there's a lot of information that you can find out there. My honest recommendation is just to go find A Hero with 1,000 Faces and read that and kind of cement that knowledge for yourself rather than hearing it from somebody else. I know a lot of you are kind of asking a question right now, which is what story structure works. You saw that one slide where I had lots and lots of different graphs, and probably there were 2 more made since I started recording this video as far as I'm concerned. And I can't tell you what works. And the reason I can't tell you what works is because it really depends on you, it depends on your story, it depends on how you want to deliver it. There are so many different ways to do it, but rather than kind of like diving too deeply into that, I actually want to tell you how I ended up using the hero's journey and Save the Cat and a couple of other things to help me redefine my work, so that way you can kind of see as a writer how it can be applicable and help you with your writing. So my story starts 5 years ago at the time I'm recording this video, and I had written what I thought was a really good book, right? I was pretty proud, had some big britches, I thought I was doing really well. And what happened is I had taken my book and I had given it to a developmental editor. And the developmental editor handled this with a lot more grace than I'm going to explain it to you. But what she came back and told me is that I did not have a story. I had a 1,000-word character concept. There were some fun moments, but there wasn't anything that actually tied the entire thing together. I had a really good hook in the beginning. It was kind of engaging. And I have to agree with that assessment because when I initially wrote Queen of Swords and Silence, I was very enamored with the idea of what Ghost, my main character, was. She was a malformed Valkyrie. She was kind of an outcast from her society. And while I was writing the book, I was really kind of more exploring her concept, how she thought, and how she would work in the world around her, rather than kind of thinking more about the story that I was supposed to be writing. My developmental editor also pointed out that I didn't have a lot of internals from Ghost. She never processed anything, which is kind of a really big requirement in urban fantasy. For those of you who are not aware, urban fantasy has a couple of really big requirements in it. One of them being, it's usually supposed to be a badass chick that's going out and kicking butt and taking names and doing some character development, but you do have some individuals like Jim Butcher and Kevin Hearn with their male protagonists in there. But they always have internals. They're always thinking about things. They've always got some internal struggle. I did not do that with Ghost at all. Not on the page anyway. In my brain, I thought I was showing that she was having these moments, but I was not being very clear on the page itself, so that wasn't there. My plot was pretty weak, and I could see what she meant when she pointed it out in the editor letter that she sent me. And as far as she could deduct, there was zero character development from Ghost itself, and that hit me in a hard place. It hit me really hard. I remember reading it. I remember my fingers shaking a little bit. And I remember weeks later, because I was teaching at the time, when I was biking to work one day, and all I could think about was like this one phrase that she had written in the letter over and over while I was biking to work. And so what I did is, after I digested everything that she told me, I deleted 60,000 words from my manuscript. And by delete, I mean I just took them out and saved them somewhere else. I didn't actually delete all of it. But I took 60,000 words out of my manuscript, and I did about a month-long research project where I researched story beats, I looked at structure, I looked at character arcs, I really got into the nitty-gritty of what made stories what they were, and I ended up reading A Hero with 1,000 Faces as well, which is why I'm really recommending it to you, because there's getting it from somebody else and then there's reading it yourself. And once I had all that information in my brain, I sat down and I started to write again. And one of the byproducts of me doing all that research and basically shoving all these books into my brain is that I got into really spreadsheeting my stories out. There's a joke, if you're new here on my channel, where if it can be done, I probably have a spreadsheet for it. Yeah, and the spreadsheet, I don't know, syndrome, if you want to call it that. I started really getting into spreadsheets when I read The Story Grid by Sean Conn. And the reason I got really into that is because it really helped me to break down every element of the story. And I know some of you are like really intimidated by doing something like that. But I would actually recommend that you do some kind of synopsis outline, kind of like what I have here on the screen. And I'll leave a link down to the spreadsheet below, and you can make a copy of it on your Google Drive if you want it. And the reason I'm going to recommend it to you is actually for two reasons. The first is it really helps you to see what's actually going on in your story from a bird's eye point of view. It helps you see what characters are in your book. It helps you maintain consistency. And it also helps you have a really firm grasp about what is actually going on. One of the big columns I always advise people to kind of keep in here if they do make a copy of the spreadsheet is the antagonist, because your antagonist, as far as I'm concerned, should never be a static figure. They should always be doing something. So in every scene, even though the scene is focusing on what your hero or your main character is doing, you really need to still decide what your antagonist is doing off scene. The second reason is your editor is going to be really thankful for you for doing it. I actually did a panel discussion with the editing bard and Written in Melon, and Written in Melon actually pointed out that she really likes it when people give her the outline because it helps her kind of also track what's going on, and it also helps her understand the intent of the scene as well. So for example, if I wrote something, I said in this scene we're supposed to see these two characters like come together and fall in love, and let's say that my editor read it and then she read the scene, she's like, they're not falling in love, they're still fighting, so it's being completely missed here. it's just really useful for your editor to kind of have this information broken down for them. Now, do you have to do it as extensively as what you guys are seeing that I have on the screen? No, you don't. This is just a Carrow syndrome thing, but I would still recommend that you do break down your story, at least by synopsis, who is in the scene, what your antagonist is doing, and at least track what your plot points are. And I don't want to deviate too far from the point about how to apply story structure to everything else. One of the big things that I do use with my spreadsheet is the comment section. So when I am working on kind of filling this out, I do put what the story beat and what the story structure is going on here, so that way I have an idea of what's going on. And you can do that in the purpose column as well. You can say this is the meet cute beat, or you can say this is the returning to the ordinary life, however you want to do it. But yeah, I would definitely find some way to kind of track what the story structure of your work is to make sure that you are still on track. Now, is there a lot more that can be said on this topic? Yeah, absolutely. There can be so much that can be said. There's a whole bunch of people who are going to be talking about this today, and they will probably tackle it from a whole bunch of different angles that I am not. I do want to give some advice to anybody watching if you are trying to figure out how to work story structure into your novel. And the first thing that I would advise is to know what the required beats for your story are. Every genre has like requirements that need to be put in there, and the examples that I have here on the screen are romance. So you have to have the meet cute, which is when you have the your two love interests meet for the first time. You need to have the no way beat, which is when they look at each other and realize like maybe this isn't the person for me, so on and so forth. In urban fantasy, some of the required beats that they have there is the hidden world aspect of the story, and there's usually some kind of magical hijink that happens as well. There's a lot more that goes into that, but those are the required beats. And then with RPG lit, you have to have the gaming world versus the real life world, and then there has to be some kind of game glitch. And I actually really like RPG lit. It's like really it's growing into one of my favorite genres right now. But know what your required story beats are going to be, because it is going to be different from everybody else. In the story grid book that I had on the prior slide, that's actually a book mostly written for thrillers, and it's really evident when you read it. But I like how it breaks down a lot of things that go with thrillers, and then he's also got some resources on the website where you can apply it to different things. I'll leave that down below for you guys. After that, I would just tell you to go ahead and just enjoy what you're writing, like have a lot of fun with it. One thing that I have definitely noticed, and I see it more with the discovery writers than I do with the pantsers, is that your brain is going to unconsciously follow a lot of the story beats that people are kind of expecting from your genre. So rather than writing and kind of wondering if you're hitting the story beat or not, just write and have a good time with it. And if you end up going back and rereading it and realizing that you missed something that needed to be there, you can just add it back in. Don't even stress it. Write, have fun with the drafting process, and come back to it later. The very last thing that I do want to say is that you don't have to do the full story structure beats. You don't have to. Not everybody does. And some people feel really confined and stressed out by just the thought that they have to follow those. You don't have to. Find the ones that work really well for what you're writing and go ahead and use that. And if you see that there's a beat that doesn't work for your story, I'll be the first one to tell you that you don't need to use it. So there you go. That wraps up what I wanted to talk about in regards to story structure. Again, I would really encourage you guys to go to Robert Jones's channel. Again, that will be linked down below, and go see the playlist with all the other contributors and see what they have to say on the topic. I'm sure they will dive into all sorts of fun details and give you all kinds of fun tidbit advice. Thank you again for watching. Down in the video description, I've got links to a couple of different things, from the books that I've published to some incentives that I was part of, such as the Evergreen Writing Oasis Retreat. Please feel free to check those out. And also, if I did not clearly define what it is that I am talking about in the video, feel free to ask a question, or if you have a comment that you want to make in regards to story structure and how it works for you, leave that down there below too. I do have people that do check out these videos and they do read the comment section, so whatever tidbit and advice that you have to offer to them, I am confident that they're going to really appreciate it. But that's pretty much going to be me for the day. Thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you all next week.